I think we're good.
Right, welcome to episode number 79 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on August the 2nd, 2020. My name's Eric, I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and a few more ham operators on the show now, as far as I know, and a computer geek. As a first responder, I've witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events. I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared and better look after themselves for at least 72 hours.
My name is Ian. I live on Vancouver Island. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, sport shooter, and my farm's designated handyman. Alan?
You're muted.
All right. Well, Alan's on mute. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Tyler, and I live in Northwest Wisconsin. Besides preparedness, I also enjoy homesteading, metalworking, engines, guns, and the great outdoors.
All right. Want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt at rapidsurvival.com. All proceeds help to keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook.
I'm Alan. I'm under some pretty nasty weather right now, so if you can't hear me, that's why. I'm also now a ham radio operator, safety trainer, first responder, and security expert, overall safety nerd.
Better late than never.
And slightly lagged, but that's okay.
All right. So if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. We want your feedback, good or bad, or if there's a topic you want us to cover, email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some blacked out content for you in this episode. Yes, we're up to 79 terrible jokes. We're going to start off first with some preparedness-related news articles, and we're going to let you know what we did for our preparedness since the last episode, and we're going to get into the main topic of dealing with power outages. So let's move into some news. We'll see how lagged Alan is.
If you can hear me, a New Brunswick woman was lost in the woods for a couple of weeks. She went missing from an ATV trail. They found her phone, and they found her eventually a little while longer without much worse for wear. She was eventually found by some linemen doing some maintenance on power lines, and she survived by finding berries and drinking puddle water. We could do an entire show unpacking what she could have done differently and how you could prepare for such things in the future, but suffice it to say, look for man-made structures, and somebody will eventually come along to maintain them.
True.
Yeah.
Or, of course, you can always knock around something that, sets off an alarm when it goes offline, in which case somebody will come looking to fix it.
Valid point,
Find a road and follow it, right?
It's always that. All right, so for myself, tornado warning for Ontario, which I guess is affecting Alan as we speak, but mostly around the Barrie, Ontario, and kind of northeast area.
Yep.
So it's a big thing. It's as we speak. So Ottawa, Gatineau, maybe it might take up Parliament if we're lucky. Oh, that's for entertainment purposes only. Joke.
That's Monday's podcast.
That's right. Other than that, murder hornets. Oh my! So they found their first murder hornet in Washington State in a bee trap. Which I thought they had actually dropped that story after they mentioned it about 3 times, and then COVID kind of took over everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they finally got their first murder hornet approaching BC. So I just had to kind of giggle. It's like 1 now.
At least it's in a trap. That's good.
I remember hearing stories about the
They dropped them from the original storyline, but now that they're running out of other stuff to talk about, they're revisiting it. It's like it's going to become a recurring character.
Yeah. It's like North Korea, but murder hornets.
Yep.
No articles for me today.
Yeah, so if you guys remember 7 months ago, it feels like 7 years ago now, back in January, when the United States, I believe it was Trump, ordered the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani. And there was kind of a whole lot of memes going back and forth about World War III, everything like that. And I believe Iran kind of promised to retaliate. Well, it seems that now maybe they're finally fulfilling that promise. Here's a headline from Business Insider 4 days ago. Iran fired missiles at a replica U.S. aircraft carrier in the Strait of Hormuz in an attempt to show off its military strength. So maybe a little delayed from the coronavirus, but message heard loud and clear, I guess. And amongst other poor foreign relations to announce, this is a article from the Washington Post. China pledges to retaliate after U.S. orders closure of its consulate in Houston. So it's been pretty well known for a while that China has been basically hacking and stealing technology from the United States. And Donald Trump finally ordered the closure of the U.S. consulate in Houston, which is kind of their main headquarters. that very same day, there was, if you could go to the article, you can see the fire trucks outside. There was people in the courtyard just burning documents and barrels and stuff that same day. So lots of fun stuff going on down here in the States.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. That's it for news.
What we've done lately for preps. So for myself, I wasn't here last episode because I was out on Crown land. We have a little fishing spot that we go to usually once a year in September, but we decided we'd mix things up a little bit and go out in July this year. So spent 4 days out there. We usually bring some food with us because we don't plan on just eating whatever we can find every night we're out there, but we do plan at least one night where we have to catch our food or we're not eating. So yeah, it worked out well. I had a great fish fry that night. So that was good. And besides that, I have been all over the place for work and getting the house ready for renovations because we are taking on a huge project and moving some walls and redoing pretty much the entire interior of the house. So yes, we're crazy. We have a 9-month-old and we're doing a major house renovation, but we'll get
well,
through.
I guess your stress level wasn't high enough for your liking or something, or
no, it was starting to come back down. So I figured I'd just ramp it right back up.
Well, just have a pair, like, to get some twins or something, that'll just take care of your spare time. And
easy.
Yeah. Anyway, a message from Alan said his internet's out because the curse the clouds type of thing. But yeah, sadly, internet has its shortcomings. So
that does.
Yeah. So for myself, I finished my winter wood supply about 2 months earlier than I normally do, which is good thanks to COVID. So it's all stocked away for the winter and happily drying underneath cover. And yeah, it's actually fantastic to have that done way ahead of time instead of scrambling at the last minute to make sure I get it all under cover. Let's see here. I did a couple CGN deals just for some parts, mainly because ever since Bill Blair has gone on his little rampage of banning stuff, he mentioned to the CBSA that some AR-15 parts are banned. And so the customs agency took that to mean that all AR-15 parts are banned. But the problem is a lot of these parts go on various other types of firearms. So now all of a sudden there's this mass panic going on. There's no parts, no ammo, and very few firearms coming in to Canada, especially, but also a shortage in the States, I imagine, on Tyler's end as well.
Yep, huge shortage. There is the shelves for everything are just completely wiped clean down here.
Yeah, so I mean, thanks to Canadian Gun Nuts, I mean, there's lots of parts. If you need spare parts or anything, you can usually get it secondhand at a discount, and there's still a supply there for now. So. I arranged a couple guests for the next few months. Might have somebody coming on to talk about solar the next little while, and also a nice lady coming on to talk about some various types of freeze-dried foods. Okay. Anyway, so those more on that next later this month, and I do believe next month as well. So
yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, so planted some more perennials, just food-bearing items in the closed-off chicken run. So I closed off another chicken run that we no longer use. Made sure the fences are all good to keep the current chickens out and the alpacas, of course. And so I managed to plunk some seeds in, even though it's late in the season for us here. But I mean, stuff grows until November anyways. It'll come back, by February, so it's all good. Arranged sales for some chickens. Like I got a friend that's recently taken a serious look at prepping because of the COVID. And I sold him some chickens about 3 months ago, and now he wanted a specific breed, and I managed to get a third party involved and sold him some more chickens. So we had a meet and greet at our place and did the chicken deal, so to speak. Reloaded some 9mm for the range day that's coming up soon. Nice. And yeah, I got some supplies to collect more rainwater off one of my shed roofs, the steel roof there. So I just got some, what do you call it? The gutter and a couple downspouts and some other piping involved just to kind of feed into the same holding pan as before. So that'll increase the rainwater collection efficiency anyway. And then one last thing, I started using this app called Strava, which is incredibly invasive as far as privacy goes.
Yes, it is.
It is horrible, but the good news is it's hyper accurate GPS mapping and elevation tracking. So it actually, if you want to mark out your property or actually see where you're going and compare it to satellite maps that sometimes you can't see through the bush, it's actually really good for doing that. So just there's a few other guys from a couple other podcasts that are using it, and we're comparing notes because we're trying to do like a what they call the partisan challenge to get a certain amount of exercise every day. And it's a little bit of positive feedback as far as encouraging everybody else to exercise. And I'll use it for a little while, then I'll probably soon thereafter toss it because it's just, like I said, it tracks your movements worse than the COVID app, I think. So
maybe it tracks it the same as the COVID app.
yeah, exactly. It's probably the same software, just rebranded with an exercise-friendly packaging or something. So, but yeah, I thought it was a neat thing. It's like I said, hyper accurate. You can even see where I actually like stopped and went swimming with the dogs, and then got back up, and then it's that accurate. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary accurate.
Yeah. So and there's a vertical profile too, which is nice when you're in the hills here. So yeah, that's it. So Strava app, it's interesting. It's free. And like I said, if it's free, you know who the product is. So that's it. That's it for me. So I don't know. I think Alan's going to have to skip. So we'll go straight to Tyler.
Yeah. So much like Ian, I finished cutting and splitting firewood for the season. I put up about another 6 cords. So now I've got enough for both this winter and next. I got that stacked and ready to burn under the woodshed. Had a flat tire on the skid loader, and the old tires were pretty bald, so I went ahead and ordered a set of 4 new ones and got those mounted just in time because I had loads of gravel dropped off early last week. So I've spent a good part of the last week now shoveling and moving gravel around with the skid loader, and I just finished that up today. Also ordered 25 egg-laying chicks. They're going to be delivered here in about 2 weeks. So slowly continuing to work on getting the poultry coop ready. And this week I was able to get the doors for going around the shed. I'm going to have separate poultry runs. So I built 5 gates to get in between all the fencing and stuff, and then mounted those onto the side of the shed. And besides that, my wife's been canning and pickling almost every day, stuff from the garden. So I try to help her out when I can, keep her happy. And that's been about it for me.
Oh, nice. Well, let's move into the main topic then.
All right. So I guess nothing feels worse than when that power goes out at various times when you really don't want it to go out. And even if you're a prepper, it's like losing your right arm, isn't it?
Yeah, it always goes out at the worst time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about before lessons learned from that 2-day power outage I had before. So it's actually interesting. Like, you don't need as much power as you think to run a lot of stuff. So I started to think about like ways around power outages, and there's various things to do with the power outages you can prepare for, I guess. So a couple things that if you're doing a ham radio license, you would know this as well, of course, is that thanks to Ohm's law, you know that volts times amps equals watts. So if you're looking at like something like a little LED light bulb like this one, that have come down amazingly in price compared to the way they used to be. Ever. Yep. Yeah. So surprisingly, they don't use a whole lot. So they only use 9.5 watts. And so when you think about it, if you have like a 2,000 watt generator, you can literally run like a schwack of these, like 200 light bulbs if you really had to. Like if you had seasonal affective disorder or something and needed some extra light. So yeah, it's amazing what 2,000 watts will get you. I mean, to compare, a hairdryer uses 1,500 watts and this is 10 watts, which is amazing. And then your freezer doesn't use as much as you would think. So like I actually just took a look at this one next to me here. It's a 575 watt when it's running. That it uses nothing, right? So it only comes on and cycles on once about every couple hours, right? Depending on how hot it is. So when you're thinking about how much power you're going to have to replace, I guess you got to think about what items you want to power during a power outage and how often they're going to be turning on or needing to be used. And that's a good starting point to think about how much power you're going to need.
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes into figuring out what you need power-wise. But once you figure it out, then you can size out a generator if that's the way you want to go, or your solar panels. But definitely that's the point to start at, is how much do I actually need to consume and what do I actually need to run versus what can I deal without?
Yeah, so like if you're in an apartment, you're not going to want to run a gas generator on your deck because you don't want to be that guy. And there's also some offset considerations and everything else. So a couple ways around that, of course, even a solar panel is a little bit conspicuous. Although that would work if you had a solar panel, a battery, a charge controller, and an inverter. I suppose you could work it all out, or you could just get what they call a portable power station. So, like I think Jackery and Kodiak and a couple other ones make it. It's basically just a big giant suitcase looking. Looks like a Honda generator, but it's just basically a bunch of batteries with an inverter built in. So you'd have to charge them ahead of time, but they are definitely quiet during a power outage. So it keeps keeps everything powered as required. Probably power your fridge for a little while, but not for very long. But maybe if you only have to run it for a few hours a day, it might work for a couple days.
Yeah, at least keep your stuff cold for, like you said, a couple days, right?
Yeah, for those people that really want to keep it on the down low. Your car can be used as a generator when you think about it, between your cigarette lighters, and you can always figure out like an inverter for the cigarette lighters and power some stuff like laptops as required, but not overly efficient, but it's there.
It's an option.
It's an option.
Yeah.
The other thing you can start thinking about, I think we'll have some show and tell here as well, but I mean, everything from the little battery bank that you carry in your suitcase or whatever for your cell phones that are good to recharge your cell phone a few times. Those are pretty available. There's also the hiking version, which has a solar panel built in, and will probably charge your phone about 3 or 4 times, and it has a couple outlets. And then, of course, if you have it in the sun, you can also recharge it over time. And then other things that you might have to use in a power outage is like the ambient weather solar powered crank radio.
Yes.
Assuming your kids haven't broken the crank, you can crank it or use solar power or the in-house battery to keep it powered. But either way, it's one thing to deal with a power outage to get information from the biased media sources as required, and but yeah, at least it's something that will help you in case of a power outage. It's always there and always ready to be used. Yeah. So as far as generators go, I was surprised that my little EU 2000i from Honda only puts out 2,000 watts nominal. I think it's a little bit more in a surge, but it actually can cover everything I need. It can cover like a couple freezers that are cycling on and off at different times, and the fridge, and a few lights, and still manage to power like everything I need with something that's really quiet and doesn't burn a whole lot of gas. I was actually surprised. Yeah. I was expecting a big screaming demon that was going to require like one of those big champion ones, but surprisingly not.
I'm surprised at how quiet the Honda ones are.
Yeah, you pay a lot more for them, but they really are a lot nicer.
Yeah, and I mean, like even during shearing day, that's what we use to power because there's nowhere near a plug when we're shearing the animals, and it's more than enough to handle the clippers, that's for sure. And it just it spools right down to like the idle setting basically when it's running the clippers. So, so yeah, the nice thing is it spools up as required for power requirements. So if it needs a lot, it'll speed up, and if not, it'll slow right down, and it turns down to its point where it's sipping gas, I guess, right?
Yep. And speaking of using car for a generator, we actually ended up having to do that on that little camping trip I was talking about. I take my boat out with us, and it needs a battery to start and run. And of course, we get out, battery's toast. It's like, okay, well, we're putting our heads together trying to figure out how are we going to boost this thing, get it running, get it moving. Well, I happened to bring my extension cord with me. We had an inverter, plug the inverter into the cigarette lighter, run the extension cord to the boat. We had to run it for about an hour or so to get a good charge into it, but charged it enough to spark the motor and make her go. So it works. It's like you said, it is not overly efficient, but got the job done, got us on the water, and made sure that we had a good fish fry. So
exactly. And of course, once the engine's running, it'll start charging the battery on its own anyway.
Exactly.
So. Yep. Yeah. So I guess the nice thing is with the in case power outages, you don't need to run your generator all the time. It's just personally, when we were out for a couple days there, we just turned on the generator every few hours, made sure that we had everything hooked into it that we wanted to charge up, and so it would run the freezers, it would charge the cell phones, everything all at once. You're probably used to seeing these uninterruptible power supplies sitting around for your computer, Eric.
Oh yeah, yep. I've got one sitting right here.
Yeah, so they're the same idea as the power stations. Is basically a battery and an inverter, and the nice thing is if you have your cell phones plugged into those and the UPS into the generator, that's going to charge the generator, will charge the UPS batteries, which will also charge your cell phone batteries all at the same time. And the nice thing is if you're actually like hatching chicks, even one of these UPSs are nice that if you the power goes out, they'll keep the incubator going, which we had a couple times. It's a fantastic little system for sure.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're handy, and they'll last anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what you're powering, and get you through for a little bit.
Yeah, I think for us it was actually it was burning more energy just running the in-house fan that it had on it. It was actually just like charging the phones and running the incubator, but. Especially if it's something that's critical like that, you don't want to lose power at the wrong moment, right?
No, definitely not. That's part of our renovation plans, is to have the backup generator we have here in the house reconfigured to run a few different things that it doesn't run right now. So it'll be handy.
Well, there's also something to be said for it, maybe not coming on automatically unless you're not home. But I mean, like maybe having a choice of whether or not it comes on depending on the noise level.
Right.
But can you separate your house from the grid when that thing comes online, or how's it work?
So it just after 10 seconds of the main grid power going, it just switches over to the generator panel, and the generator fires up, runs, and it powers the panel. Anything that's connected to the generator panel gets powered, and then once the main power comes back on, it flicks back over to the main panel. So
wow,
Yeah.
Does it automatically shut down as well?
Yeah, auto shut down everything. Yeah, it just fire. It does its own thing.
That's nice.
It's handy.
Yeah. I mean, for us that are the poorest like myself, like we don't have anything fancy like that. So, a lot to be said for having
it came with the house.
Yeah, I know. It's not cheap to put in, though, are they?
No, they're about 10 to 14 grand to put in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty pricey. So, a lot to be said about having like a separated section of your panel from the grid. Like if you're able to actually like isolate something, so you don't like backfeed into the grid because you don't want to like damage any power line workers or anything else. But even if, like, for example, if you had like an Atco trailer with a dedicated like just extension cord running into your generator, you could actually like have an isolated trailer. That'd be one thing to have as an alternate thing if the power's out for any length of time.
Yep. So I've got a 9,000 watt from Harbor Freight, one of their Predator generators, and that was originally my plan. Exactly what you're thinking. I would be able to just wheel it outside when the power's out, plug in like a 220 cord somewhere on the house, and then that would feed X amount of breaker circuits inside the house, mainly the ones that are plugged into the fridge and the few freezers we've got and things like that, the furnace, well pump, water heater and stuff like that. But I got the generator and then come to find that it's like it was a little over $500 for the generator, I think, and it was like $1,200 minimum to get an electrician to come out and install the transfer switch and isolate a few breakers like you're talking about. So long story short, I've got like 6 or 8 heavy duty extension cords laying around that I can just run to my fridges and freezers if need be. Luckily, I haven't had a power outage since I got the generator and haven't needed to use it. But that's my short-term solution because. But then again, once that plug's there, any other generator down the road, you can simply plug into that, and that would also protect you from maybe power surges from something else or something like that. But yeah, definitely something to be said about having that isolated breaker panel or whatever you might call it. So of course,
that's how it always goes, right? You buy a generator and then the power's not going to go out for a couple of years.
Yep.
So everybody just listening, go out and buy a generator.
Yep.
You're not going to worry about power outages.
Exactly. That's what it seems like.
Well, I think it's that movie Take Shelter where the guy builds the entire tornado shelter and goes full prepper and then nothing happens. And he starts laughing at him. And he finally gives up. Just as he gives up, there's something on the horizon that looks like Armageddon's happening. And it's proven right after all. It was like actually a pretty mainstream movie a few years ago. But anyways, yeah. So like I was going to say, like maybe a dedicated power line into your tornado shelter that's separated from the rest of your house might be an idea, like Tyler was saying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like those transfer switches will isolate your house. Also, your main breaker will too. But then, of course, you have to worry about wiring issues as well in order to do that. But I mean, it's a thought, right? One thing people can do that's fairly easy too, especially if you live in a super cold climate, like it does get quite cold in winter, is figure out how to get a power line from your generator outside into your house without letting weather in. So I mean, maybe it's just like a seal for the window. Because there's no point in having like a heater running off of a generator with a window cracked open. So if you had a way to like seal off the window and still get the power line through it, it'd be one thing, or have like a dedicated pass through on a power line just to minimize your heat loss.
That's a good point.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I had. As far as that goes, like there's so many little tools you can buy out there. Like I think even the BioLite stove, I mean, you can get one of these little things here that like if you're willing to burn wood, you can charge stuff slowly as well, but again, not good for apartment prepping. Not even good for town, really, when you think about it. But good for camping. I mean, but I mean, if things got really haywire, I suppose you could use that. But there's tons of ways to generate power. You just have to be use your imagination a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all I had for now.
There's all kinds of different options for getting power to your house that you just have to kind of research them and know them ahead of time, because once power goes out, that's not the time to start scrambling and trying to figure out how to power things.
Well, especially because that UPS, like I was mentioning there, like we try to keep it charged up. But yeah, if you leave it unplugged so it doesn't go off, until you actually need it, it does lose power over time. And you don't want to sit there and have to discover that the UPS battery's empty as well as everything else. You want to make sure they all stay topped up as well, right?
And hey, that brings us back to something we say quite often in pretty much every other episode: test your equipment. So while you still got main grid power, test your generator, hook it up, kill the power to your house, hook the generator up as you think you would when the power's actually out. Make sure things run the way you think it's actually going to run. No better way to test when you've got a safety blanket of the main grid running still, because you can just flip back to the main grid and everything's fine, right?
Especially if something doesn't work at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's the time to find out that nothing's going to work or it's going to work perfectly, is when you've got that safety net to fall back on when the power's actually there.
Well, because at a Honda generator, if you're drawing too much power off the generator, you'll actually burn it out.
Yep.
And there's a little warning light that comes on and says, "Hey, you're drawing too much." And you got about 15 seconds before the generator's toast, and it's not like you're going to take it to the service center at that point. So,
No.
if you're actually in a power outage situation,
Yeah, so it's good idea to test your stuff, and even with the like the UPSs, it's a good idea to test them every month. Just make sure that they run them through. Some of them do self testing. Some of them you'll want to check your manual for. Some of them you have to do the manual testing yourself to make sure all the circuitry inside is working and that the battery is actually going to work for you. And they'll start to beep after a certain amount of time. If they are self testing, they'll start to do that wonderful beep 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 at you and say, "Hey, battery's dying in this thing. Don't ignore the beeps. It's trying to tell you something. Time to get a new battery."
well, just like fire alarms, right? If they start beeping randomly,
Yeah, just pull the battery. It's fine. I'll set Alan off on that one.
Yeah, so for me, I guess just like kind of starting with the power outage, first thing I would do is sort of assess the situation, kind of think about why is the power out? Are you in the middle of a tornado storm, windstorm, blizzard, something like that? Are you expecting a power outage? If you're not expecting a power outage, even just today, literally my wife and I were sitting eating lunch this afternoon, the power just went out for like 10 seconds. No idea why. And right away, I'm like, okay, is there electrical fire going on? Something like that. So if you're not expecting a power outage, there's not inclement weather outside, good thing to do is just check the breaker panel inside the house, make sure it's not sparking, anything like that. Make sure you and everyone else know how to at least shut the main power off. So let's say maybe there's an outlet on the wall that's got a crossed wire or something and starts to spark and maybe starts a little fire, you can shut the power off. So look, smell, listen for possible electric fires. Depending on where you're at, like I'm out in the country, pretty far off the road. So I've got actually a fairly long, it's like a stringer line to my power lines, or from the power lines up to the house. So that would be a good spot to check, make sure there's not any trees down on that. Maybe if you're in the cities and the power went out, take a look outside, make sure the transformer right above your apartment isn't exploding and throwing sparks all over the place. Something like that, or lightning strike hasn't hit, anything like that. The next thing I would do would probably be call the power company, or we got an electric co-op out here. They'll usually be able to give you a pretty accurate kind of ETA on when the power is going to come back on. And if you do see any power lines down, anything like that, call the non-emergency police line, or maybe call 911 if it needs to be. But just report those down power lines or fallen trees, any poles that have been down, anything like that.
Well, actually, even BC Hydro here has a website where you go on there to report a power outage, and you can report it there, and they do it by map as well. It'll actually tell you if crews have been assigned, what the problem was, the ETA for when it's done, and everything else. So if you still have your cell phone, at least you can check it via that.
Yeah, we've got the same thing here. Hydro One's got that exact same thing, and you can even sign up for a text message notification that the power is out in your area, and they'll give you the idea of when it might be back, and usually they're pretty close on when they're going to get things restored. Mm-hmm. That was a great point too, Tyler, on making sure that it's not actually something wrong in your house, because we're all very quick to just assume that it's, a power line's down, or maybe an accident happened and a pole got knocked over or something. Mm-hmm. You're not anyone I really talk to thinks right away, well, maybe there's an electrical problem in my house that's going to cause a further problem shortly.
Yep.
It's just like, oh yeah, well, there's a line somewhere and Hydro's going to look after it. I'll just carry on my day.
Yep.
Great point to make sure that your house is actually not the one causing the problem.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty easy to tell if there's an electrical fire going on. Usually it's smoldering and like light smoke be coming out of the wall, somewhere like that. And it's usually got a pretty distinct smell. It's basically, it's usually wires melting. So it's rubber insulated wires melting. It smells like burnt rubber almost.
Yeah, it is very, very distinct.
Yeah. We talked quite a bit about, we talked quite a bit about backup power generation, specifically generators. So the one I've got is just gas run, but there also are multi-fuels out there. You can get ones that run on like kerosene or propane. Obviously, if you've got nothing but money to spend, you could go get a solar setup or like a wind turbine setup to feed your own, battery bank in the basement and power your whole house. That's probably what we all dream of here, but you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars probably to do that. Geothermal is also an option, especially when it comes to heating and cooling. That's a pretty interesting technology. I wish I could speak more about it. I don't know a whole lot, but I know you're basically harnessing that median temperature of the ground was at 6 feet down. It's like a constant 50 or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're basically taking that, heating or cooling your house with that.
Well, the rule of thumb is basically once you go 15 feet down, it's basically the mean average temperature of your area. So whatever that may be, that's what it's sitting at. So,
wow. Nice.
And the whole idea is that I guess you get below the permafrost as well if you're up north, which is good.
Right. Yep.
But so like generally in a hotter climate it's gonna be warmer, but it's supposed to moderate. So in the summer it's supposed to provide a little bit of cooling. In the winter it's gonna it won't heat your house completely, but it will augment it enough to the point where you don't have to spend a whole lot of energy heating your house.
Right, exactly. So instead of 2,000 or 3,000 watts to run your heater, you're running 300 watts to do a little water pump or a fan or whatever it might be. And I guess I know down here, at least for a long time, there was like government kickbacks and incentive programs for solar, wind, and geothermal. So if you are thinking of, building a new house or building a new property, whatever it might be, I would say that's probably the time to think about some of these things, because there are, at least there were a lot of incentive programs out there for these. So, and they're a lot cheaper to put in when you're building than they are after the fact. You're not trying to dig out ground and run lines and everything like that. So,
yeah, nobody else wants to spend any money is when they're building the house.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say the first thing I would worry about after power outage would be refrigeration. So probably just avoid opening the fridge freezer as much as you can. It helps to keep them, both the fridge and the freezer, kind of full. Make sure it's not just much air in there. I know a lot of people will even just fill water bottles and keep those frozen in there. And then if you do have a power outage, bam, there you've got 30 1-gallon jugs of water in there. You can pull those out after the let's say you've got a 10-day power outage or something crazy like that happens, or infinite power outage. Now you've got all that water in the fridge. It's gonna help keep all that food in there much longer as well.
That's a good point.
It's basically like a thermal mass, it's a cooling effect, right?
Yep, exactly. And you're going to be, if you do have a backup generator or something like that, you're not going to need to run that generator as often with a full fridge or freezer. And depending on the scenario, if you can get a hold of your power company or co-op and you find out that power is going to be on in 6 hours, you don't need to worry about it. If it's 24 hours, some things in the fridge might be a little dicey. If you're looking at 2-3 days, even some of your freezer stuff might go bad if you're trying to go in there and get things. So, when the power does go out, try to figure out what's going on, how long it's going to be. And then from there, you kind of need to plan, okay, I can keep my fridge freezer going for 2 days or 3 days. And after that, the food's bad. So maybe if you do have a bunch of meat in there and you've got a smoker, now's the time to start smoking the meat or whatever it might be. Figure out how to use up that food in there. Try to waste as little as possible, I guess.
Well, also, I think if you have more than one refrigeration unit, you want to make sure you cycle them through at different times so that they don't all come at once if you have limited wattage available in your generator.
Yeah.
So, because they won't. If they're all running at once, they're gonna have a huge draw. But if they're all running at opposite times, it's actually a lower requirement. So
exactly, and that's, you can save a lot of money on your initial generator purchase, thinking about those things ahead of time. Okay, I've got 2 freezers, 2 fridges, and okay, combined they would all need 10,000 watts or 5,000 watts to run. Well, you can run 2 for an hour, unplug those, and then plug the other 2 in for an hour, and now you're getting by on half capacity basically. And there's a big difference between starting and running wattage, and those are things you kind of need to look into on your appliances ahead of time. So that's a good point. So after refrigeration, I would say being where it gets really cold in winter, like probably both of you guys, heating and cooling would be my next biggest worry. In terms of a cold climate, really an indoor wood stove is your only like long-term sustainable solution. Even an outdoor wood stove like I've got here, that's what I primarily heat with, is an outdoor wood stove. I still need electricity. It basically just circulates hot water from the wood stove into the house, and then it blows that hot air through a furnace fan. So it requires electricity to run all that stuff. Not a lot, but it still needs electricity to operate. I did install an indoor wood stove as a backup for that exact reason, because it's something you can do cheap, and I happen to have the chimney already there, so easy peasy. Something else I thought about when I moved in here, right in this room in the corner, this is an addition, so there's no ductwork in here, but they've got like a little propane stove in the corner hooked up to a separate thermostat right here. Well, I replaced this thermostat, and I found out that you can get battery operated thermostats, so I can still run that little propane stove in the corner even without electricity. And that's going to apply to your ovens as well. You know, the propane's still flowing. That doesn't require electricity. It's a pressurized tank flowing into a stove or a propane fireplace. So you just need an ignition source. Like on your kitchen stove, you can just do that manually with a lighter. If you have a gas stove, you can just turn the gas on and manually light it with a grill lighter. Be careful, obviously, because there's gas coming out of there. But if you know what you're doing, it's not going to like blow up in your face. And same thing goes for this little wood stove or propane stove in the corner here. I got a battery operated thermostat now. It's still got a main wire, but if power goes out, it's got a battery backup, so I can still operate that little propane stove in the corner.
Good to know. I didn't know such a thing existed.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And then I know I talked about it on a prior podcast, but I've also got DeWalt actually makes like a little cordless propane torpedo heater that runs on their 20-volt battery system. That thing works awesome. We've been using it to heat the little garage that's underneath this addition. And as far as heating and cooling, the other biggest thing, just have lots of blankets, good winter attire, hats, gloves, boots, snow jackets. If you are facing like a 2 or 3 day power outage, if you're hunkered down inside with a few blankets and huddled up, you'll at least survive, even if it's really cold. After heating and cooling, I would say water is probably the next thing I'm worried about. And the biggest thing is to just have water stored. There's a lot of different options you can do. I know a popular one is like the water bobs here. It's like a little plastic tub liner, and it's even got like a little pump on it. So let's say there's tornadoes coming through, you're sure the power is going to go out, or there's a huge blizzard coming. Maybe that's a good time to throw the water bob in, or even if you don't have one of those, you can still fill up the tub with water. You can use that water for a lot of other things. You might not want to drink it without purifying it, but just having water stored on hand is going to save you a lot of hassle. I'm on my own well here, so I can, I've got backup power. I can plug that into the generator and still pump water up if I need it. If you're on city water, depending on the system, you might have water for days or a week or whatever it might be. But if you have water stored in the closet or wherever you can store it, you've got water. You don't have to worry about electricity being able to pump it to your house and pump it through the faucets, everything like that. If you need to, you can scout lakes and streams nearby. It's not a bad idea to know where you can get water. Like I said, if you know there's a big blizzard coming and you're going to bed for the night, maybe it's not a bad idea if you've got a few larger pots or pans just to fill them up with water and set them on the stove. If you wake up when the power's out, hey, you've got a couple of gallons of water to drink, and it's not going to cost you a dime. After water, I would say plumbing is the next issue to think about. Same thing, you need water. Toilets, for the most part, as far as I know, all work off gravity. So as long as there's water in the tank behind the toilet, you can flush the handle and it's going to flush out. Here we've got our own septic system. If you're in town, it's going to pump it out to the main sewage line or whatever, I suppose. But as long as you can keep the tank on your toilet you can continue to flush the toilet and use your indoor toilet, and that's going to probably be your at least most comfortable solution.
Well, plus you stay a hero to your family too.
Yeah, no kidding. It's surprising how many people don't actually know that. You can just dump water in there and continue to use it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome. Especially it depends if you're in the country here and you have a septic system that requires a septic electric pump to actually get to your septic tank field. It's one thing, but we're on a gravity system for their septic as well. So everything's all self-contained, and as long as you got gravity and you got water, you're good to go.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and mine's a combination kind of the two. I've got like a holding tank outside, and then once that fills up, it pumps out to the drain field. So, I've got how many days or possibly weeks before that main tank fills up, and then it dumps out to the drain field. So, yeah, those are things, being a homeowner, those are things you kind of should try to learn and figure out and know yourself, because you can get by and do a lot of things if you know how these systems work, and okay, here's where the air comes in and goes out, or here's where the sewage comes in, goes out, the water comes in here. If I shut this off and turn that one on, I can do this. You'd be surprised kind of what you can work around if you know how your house works.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
After plumbing, I would say the next comfort item is probably your lights. Easiest thing is just have lots of flashlights and batteries. Candles work good. You can get these little tea light candles for super cheap at just Walmart, or I'm sure anywhere up there in Canada too. But those work pretty good. They burn for a few hours, and just don't burn your house down. Just don't be done with candles.
Oh, we actually had that like during that big power outage. I think before you joined the podcast, Tyler, we actually had a right across the bay. We watched it happen.
Oh, really?
House burned down because the kids were using the tea lights and they managed to slide a couple onto the carpet, and that was the whole house.
Yeah, don't do them in the carpeted living room. Keep them like, just be smart with candles. They're great, but be smart with them. Yep, absolutely. Solar powered lights. Lots of options nowadays. This is like a little cheap rope light from Harbor Freight. It was like a couple bucks, and they actually work pretty decent. If you got a little bit of money to spend, I happen to get this on my credit cards reward, but this is Ian talked briefly about the BioLite system. They've actually got like a solar charging, comes with like a little solar panel. It's got like an inverter system on it for charging your phone, a couple solar powered lights, and it's even got a motion light on it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty wicked little stuff. I just got it like a week ago, so I haven't even had a chance to play with it yet, but pretty neat, pretty excited about it. So yeah, I think it runs you about $200, so it's a little spendy, but if you go camping a lot or something, probably something worth having.
Well, with the lights too, like just being a little proactive too, is not only are you going to lower your power bill if you get a bunch of these LED bulbs, you're going to lower your generator requirements as well. So might cost a little upfront cost, but at least it's something that will save you money in the interim before the power outage happens. It's going to LEDs in the house, because even compact fluorescents aren't as efficient as these things.
No, not even close. And I don't think you can even buy regular halogens anymore, can you? Like,
well,
in 100
we can here still, but
okay,
they're around.
But
Nice.
There's certainly not, it's like the compact fluorescents seem to have taken over, but they've got their own issues as well, and I think they're a little more fragile than these, and these seem to be a little more resilient and burn way less power. And I don't know, I as far as keeping your power bill nice and low, it's great. Like I think I just got the bill for the last quarter here, and we're down 12%.
Nice.
From last year, and that was just like, I think we've changed out an extra few, maybe 20% of the lights, the last 20% that hadn't been changed out. I just waited till the compact fluorescents died and then put in these LEDs, and made enough of a difference to notice.
Yep, I've been doing the same thing. I moved in here a little over 3 years ago now, and every time a light burns out, I just change the whole fixture to LED, and then I throw the halogens or whatever they were in the closet, and if I need a bulb in a pinch, I've got them there, but they're basically garbage. The LEDs, you can get them just almost as cheap as anything else, so.
Well, I guess if you want to take it to the nth degree for prepping too, is like LEDs do have a circuit board in them, so if you're worried about EMP, that is an issue. But the incandescents work without any sort of, like, if a power surge happens, or the incandescents will still work. So maybe
it's like a whole other world, EMPs and stuff. Man.
Yeah, it's like, don't want to go right down that rabbit hole, but yeah, they are a printed circuit board, and same thing. Compact fluorescents have like a couple of controllers in there as well. So if you're worried about that, maybe keep the incandescents in your closet. The inevitable
my plan.
Korean attack or something. Yeah.
Could happen.
Yeah.
After lighting, I would say the next thing I'm thinking about is communication, and this is going to kind of play in a little beforehand. Probably before the power outage. I would say a minimum, everybody should have some sort of weather radio down here. It's the NOAA. I can't even remember what it stands for. National. What it is, but
Observatory of Atmospherics and something else.
Yep. It's like the main weather service stations, and as soon as like there's a tornado warning or something in your area, this thing starts to blare. Surprisingly, those storms pop up quick down here. In a matter of an hour or two, you could go from sunny skies to basically a tornado rolling in. So kind of nice to have on hand, actually. And again, it's one of the multi ones. It's got like the little solar panel. It's got the crank, or it's got battery or rechargeable. So I would say that something like that is a good investment. Other communications, if you got a TV, that's usually what I'm watching, just to get the radar. You can watch the weather radar as it kind of comes through as a storm rolls in. Ham radio, if you've taken the time to get your license, which I need to do soon.
No pressure.
No, I'm falling behind.
Panel pretty much has it now. Just saying.
Yeah, well, didn't want to steal Alan's thunder either, but yeah, I think he didn't get quite break the news yet, but we'll have to talk about it next week. But actually, the ham radio does have the ability to pick up, like in Canada, like the National Radio Service does put out actually ham radio specific frequencies for weather. So
we had that today with all the tornado warnings and watches and thunderstorm warnings and watches and such all around the area. On the local repeater, they will repeat out any weather type related events that are happening over that national broadcast that happens. So they'll take that and they'll put it over the ham radio frequency and just do a little bit of an alert and play
and from
that.
my understanding, you can kind of set the ham radios up to act as sort of a scanner as well. As soon as they broadcast on certain channels, being the weather channels, then they'll come on to that. And
our weather channel here is just constantly repeating.
Okay.
So it just repeats the weather for whatever's going on that day. So it'll go and go and go, and then they update it a couple times throughout the day. But you can set the scan, and then if somebody transmits on a certain frequency, it'll hop there and go, hey, okay, and we'll start playing that one. So
awesome. Some other communication would be maybe some two-way walkie-talkies. Might be nice to have. Cell phone is probably going to be everybody's main communication device, but if it's kind of a widespread power outage, towers and things can get overwhelmed pretty easily. I know they always say if you send a text or an email, they'll eventually get through. If you're sitting there calling, you might get a busy signal, but just text or email that person you're trying to get a hold of, and it'll eventually go through. And then, of course, plenty of portable chargers for your phones, tablets, laptops, radios, etc. Having a lot of ways to charge devices is pretty important as well.
Well, I think most cell towers have like a 48-hour backup generator, but after that, they don't really have enough fuel to keep going. So eventually, those will run out too. And of course, once your power goes out, your internet router, or maybe even the neighborhood cable node that does cable internet might be out too.
Right.
Yep. It's slowly all going to start shutting down. It's just a matter of how good is the backup system.
Yeah. How widespread it is and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a question in the live chat as well.
Yeah,
I want to address that. It's just from John asking for any advice on keeping cool during a power outage. In Texas, even in the wintertime, it can get to 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oof, that's brutal.
Nobody likes to show off, John.
Yeah, it's fun now. 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, actually,
wouldn't survive at all.
Well, actually, there's something you could actually Google called Zeerpots, Zeer or Zeer, depends on where you live in. That actually basically works on the evaporation, and it's basically two like Mexican clay pot style things inside of each other, and they actually will lower the outside ambient temperature by up to about 20 to 30 Fahrenheit. And so if you have to keep food cool, that's one way to do it. Also, obviously, misting, shading. There's only so many workarounds you can do before you can't really escape the heat anymore. But think about it this way. I mean, everybody's forefathers up until the 1950s and 60s lived without air conditioning. So we can too. House construction changed, of course, but
I've seen people who've built they call them swamp coolers and stuff. They're basically just a cooler with a fan on one side, and then it basically just blows air over like a tub of ice or cold water. What is it? Salt water. If you put salt in water, it'll cool down, right?
Yeah, it cools beer down incredibly well.
Okay, yeah. So something like that you could do, but even that's going to require a little power. I know I have seen, I don't know the name of them, but people will take like their windows and they'll frame them up. And then you basically just take like a bunch of 2-liter pop bottles, and then you have that larger diameter, and then it kind of funnels down to a smaller diameter. And what that does is even a small, let's say you've got a really light breeze coming through, it's gonna funnel that all down, and just like putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose, it's going to increase the velocity. So it'll essentially kind of feel like a fan sitting in front of that window.
Yeah, they do the exact same thing in the Middle East, actually. I was spent a little time in Qatar, and basically they had a bunch of these pipes along the top of the roof of each house. Okay. And that's exactly what they were doing, is they were like funneling the air, so it actually like took care of the hottest part of the house and just funneled the air right through there and got it out.
Yeah.
So,
neat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only advice I got for that. Luckily, it doesn't usually get too hot up here.
No, that's our top end for summer.
There's usually a half a dozen or a dozen days throughout the summer where it's brutal and you really need AC. Otherwise, it's usually manageable. But we pay for it in the wintertime, right?
Yep.
After communication, I would say next thing I'm thinking about is cooking. I kind of touched briefly on if you've got like a propane or gas stove, that should still work. You're just going to need to ignite that manually. Obviously, you've got like your outdoor grill or camp stove, either propane or charcoal. Those are probably your go-to for cooking after that. If you really need to, you can rely on the good old fire and maybe some tin foil. Always nice to have that on hand.
Can make a hat too.
Or your car's exhaust manifold.
There you go. Yep. If you really want to get creative. Candles as well. You can heat up tin cans with those. Just be safe again. Let's see. If we're talking, I guess, long-term power outages, maybe you need to do some laundry. or clean some clothes is something I actually built. It's like a little DIY bucket plunger. It's just a 5-gallon bucket with a plunger in the top. Put your clothes and your laundry in there and just wash them.
We actually
Works
did
pretty
that.
good.
We did something extra sneaky. We did it's like a shishi wall decoration. It's an antique like washing board with the glass that's corrugated, and it's got like the extra bumps on it. It
Nice.
looks good as a wall decoration, but when the time comes, if it boils down to it, we can just pull it off the wall and actually use it to
There you
clean
go.
clothes. So and actually, I think we saw a garage sale for like $5. So it's a nice little backup system there. But I'm sure I'd be stuck with that.
Awesome.
Duty, so.
I'm looking for design tips when we do renos. I know what I'm putting on the wall now.
That's great.
Nice. That and a bunch of like antique hand-powered tools, right? Like
Yes.
hand drills and like the little, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, the hand drill's a must-have for sure.
Yeah.
There.
There it is.
So yeah, it's basically hand tools are. I mean, you can get them so cheap now at these usually like thrift stores and stuff like that because nobody wants them anymore. So if you spend $2 or $3, you can get quite the collection of hand tools. So
Yeah, and it's not a bad idea to have. It really isn't.
No.
The only other tip for cleaning I had was just taking like your empty soap bottles. This is just a empty Dawn dish. You buy the big bottles and then you pour it into the small bottles next to the sink. When this thing's empty, just fill it up with water. The like residual soap on the walls and stuff is enough, and it's perfect for, squirt a little on the dishes or in the cup, and you can kind of rinse it out, wash it out, or wash your hands. And maybe if you need to give yourself a little sponge bath, if it's been like a week-long power outage, you can do that, I guess.
Yeah, French shower or pull out the wipes if need be, I suppose.
Yep, there you go.
Wipes. Yep.
And then just a few other kind of tips, tricks I try to keep up with that would probably help in case of power outage. I always try to keep my cordless tool batteries fully charged. So I've got like the DeWalt 20-volt system, and I've got a few extra batteries. I always charge those up when I'm done using them, so they're always charged and ready to go. If power goes out and you do need to do some repairs, at least you're not trying to figure out how to charge your batteries as well. Keep your gas cans as well as your propane tanks. Keep those topped off. If you do need to fire up the generator, well, it's going to suck when you go to grab a 5-gallon can of gas and it's bone dry because you never keep it full.
Well, I think we've mentioned it many times, but yeah, propane never goes bad. And if you get like a stovetop that runs off propane, or nat gas, even it's a nice system to have. But yeah, dual fuel generators, you mentioned that before too. Some of them run off propane, and again, that's a fuel that you can always have around. And as long as the container's good, you're good.
Yep, absolutely. I always try to keep my air compressor tank charged up. So if I use that for running any tools or filling a tire, I'll usually charge it up so the tank is full of compressed air. That way, if I've got a flat tire and the power's out or something, I can air that up.
Do you find any problems with the rust on the bottom of the tank with that?
I haven't had any, no. So I've just got like a kind of a cheaper little portable one. I know my dad's got like a larger, like it's a cast air. It's pretty nice. But they put like a water separator in line, I think, to help with that. I'm guessing that's what it is. As the compressed air cools or warms, it condenses and then forms water probably and then rusts.
Yeah, my dad always told me to make sure you drain it every day to make sure you don't get rust in it. And I can see out here, especially on the West Coast, is like every time I drain it daily, it's like you're getting water spat on you all the time.
Yeah,
so,
I've had mine coming up on 3 years now, and it's fine, but it's also inside and yeah, it's just like a portable. I think it's a 20 or 30 gallon. Can't remember. Maybe it's an 80 gallon. I think it's an 80 gallon.
That's big.
But also keep, like, if you got a portable jump starter, keep that charged for the same reason. If your car battery's dead, boom, at least you can jump start it. And then last thing I always do is keep a flashlight and a lantern, at least a flashlight on the nightstand right next to the bed. So if the power goes out and you wake up in the middle of the night, at least you've got a light to kind of navigate your way through the house. So that's about all I had.
Cool.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
so obviously we missed a bunch of stuff, I'm sure. So if anybody has any other tips for power outages, let us know. We can always put them on the live stream or the chat afterwards, next episode.
Absolutely. And now that I think about it, to mention as well, from the kids episode, we had Jason mention something that just wasn't on last episode, so I couldn't talk about it. But to go back to that for a second, we mentioned making it fun, doing planning and games and stuff. But when it comes time to the actual emergency, we didn't mention just make that fun too. So
Yeah.
he wanted me to make sure we got that out to listeners. So I didn't get it out last episode because I wasn't here. But for this episode, I mentioned it. Don't forget to make the actual emergency fun too, because then the kids aren't going to be all freaked out.
Tent in the family room.
You got it.
Right there.
And even during the power outage, you can do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
even wrap it into this episode.
Cool.
Let's move into the podcast challenge.
All right, so this week, just want to keep it nice and simple. So just have a device or a plan to charge your iPhones and maybe get a couple household lights online. So maybe just something as simple as a universal power or uninterruptible power supply or a battery pack. Anything just to get a few items going. Start small, work your way up. No sense trying to like power the whole thing at once. But yeah, just start small, get a couple of devices with a backup system.
Yeah. If you don't have a portable charger, you'd be surprised how much you'll use it after you get it. And they're like, you can get a pretty nice portable charger for like $20-$30.
Yeah, this pocket juice, this was, I think it's maybe $15, and I use it all the time. It's crazy, especially at work, right?
They're great.
And anything with a USB port you can charge. It's awesome. So,
all right, we'll move into some upcoming events. So we've got TACCOM Canada 2020. Still delayed. We're looking at April 23rd to the 25th, 2021 now. You can still do the ticket thing if you check out prepperpodcast.ca. There's a link there on the right. You can go check it out, and we get like a $1 per ticket. So we'd appreciate you using that link if you could.
Awesome. All right. Also, please feel free to attend a Mapleseed event this summer. So they started late, but they are running just like the Appleseeds down in the States. Basic marksmanship classes, all-day class. I get the proper link in the show notes this week. Last week, I sent everybody to a seed company link, which was bad on my part. There's actually like a mapleseed.ca that sells seeds.
Oh, weird. Who knew?
Who knew? So the actual proper link name is mapleseedrifleman.com. And you can see what local events are going on in your area. And usually, like, even if you're an experienced shooter, it can't hurt just to learn some proper techniques or maybe some techniques you hadn't tried before. So it looks like I'm going to be going to that one later this month. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Nice. All right, we'll move into some shout outs.
All right, as for myself, I got listener Cam for getting the next generation into self-reliance. His son was thrilled to get those chickens this week. And it's just nice to see the excitement in the next round of people coming through that they're actually interested in something other than going to a grocery store. So that was awesome. So good job on him. I know he listens as well. Also, listener Josh and all the others are taking an interest in studying for their ham radio license.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested at all that's listening right now, PM the show or send me an email if you like, and I can send you a Dropbox link that has some study aids for ham radio and maybe just some tips and tricks and stuff. And it can't hurt. I think everybody that's gone to that link has taken the exam within a week or two, and all seem to have done well.
And RAC has started up their basic course again. They're not doing it for free now. They're charging $50 a head to do it. I figured that was coming. They put a lot of time and effort into getting the course run. So $50 is not a lot to pay for what they give you. So that's starting up. I think they're spinning up a new course in September, if I remember correctly. So head over to rac.ca if you're looking for an instructor-led course, because that's coming up. And I have a list of all the examiners in Canada that will do examinations via internet or via distance. So if that's something you're interested in as well, flip an email into feedback@prepperpodcast.ca and I can get that list to you.
Yeah, I mean, the course is nice for sure, and I think it's better to take it. But if you can't get a regular schedule like myself, you are still allowed to study on your own and challenge the exam. And like Eric said, you can get it done online, the exam. So I mean, there's no excuse now, right? It's like
no.
It should be pretty easy to get your license now.
And that's the other thing. They don't tell you, and I learned this because I'm doing the advanced course with RAC right now. They don't tell you this, but they actually record the course. So if it's Monday nights, like the one I'm doing, they record the 2-hour course and they email it out the next day. So you can watch it the next day, but they don't tell you that. It makes it look like you could only do it on the Monday night. The only thing you miss out is the ability to actually interact with the instructor and the other students and ask questions in real time. But the instructor I have welcomes questions to his email, and he'll answer them as he has time. So don't let that deter you. If you learn a little bit better by having somebody give you the information, and you're an audio type of listener or learner, then it might be an option for you. But with that, let's move into some email and iTunes reviews. So we have a new Patreon. So thank you, Mary, for signing up and giving the $2 a month option. We appreciate that. It's going to help cover some bills here and keep the show going.
That's right. And maybe we'll start getting some swag going one of these days too for some stickers or something. Make sure we pay back our Patreons over time.
If you're interested in doing that and helping us out, just check out prepperpodcast.ca. There's a link there, and we've got some various options for you. So it's certainly appreciated. It helps us pay the bills because it does cost a little bit of money to host this and keep the files up and available for everybody to listen to.
Cool. I got an email from Evan. It says, hey guys, I've been listening to your podcast since it came out, and I've really enjoyed it. With everything going on, I've been hitting the preps pretty hard, and I thought I'd share my progress. This year, I had lots of time to plant, and pamper my garden. I've been preserving beans like crazy with my new pressure canner. I've been canning vegetables as they come on sale, as well as not just from the garden. I also expanded my compost system and focused on getting more material in there and turning it daily, which has greatly improved my compost quality. I got my hands on a used chicken coop, which I fixed up and expanded to house 8 chickens, give or take a chicken or 2. I plan to get 8 or so in September, and I planted some clover in my lawn for the chickens to forage on. Lots of bugs for them to eat as well. I can interject if you plant wormwood as well, and make sure they protect so they can't get to the roots. That'll actually deworm them naturally as well, which is kind of a cool thing, and it's a perennial. He also says, I installed a water barrel to offset the dry periods we get in my area. I plan to expand it to 2 or 3 barrels next year. I started teaching the kids some light bushcraft. I found it hard to keep their attention until it was time to make a fire, like every other kid. We set up the tent and stayed sleeping outside to gain confidence in sleeping outside as well. I bought a BB gun to help practice marksmanship at home when ranges were closed. For the first time, I put in for an antlerless tag this year, hoping to double my chances of getting a deer for the freezer this fall. My wife and I have been filling the deep freezer and realized it's very small for a family of 5. We have plans to expand our freezer storage. As always, it didn't happen if there aren't pictures, so I attached a few. And they were great pictures, by the way. He says, thanks for the podcast and the encouragement from Evan. And nice garlic, Evan, by the way. I saw the pictures, and looks like you're doing a great job on that.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like you're on track.
Yeah, for the amount of pace he's keeping up, he's going to be well ahead of most very fast. Yeah. I mean, you're never going to get everything done right away, but he's certainly working at a good pace.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 79 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. I can't believe we're at 79 episodes already. It's awesome. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out to submit a review. It helps other people find us.
And if you got any questions or advice for me, you can email into the show at tyler@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes you want to flick the light switch off.
I was wondering what you were going to have for this week. All right, you can find me at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me on the live chat there. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.